Thank you. There we go. What's up, Browns Ridge? How are you guys doing today? Awesome. My name is Raisa Watsandila Kubandi, and I am sure there's at least half of you that I have never met before because you guys are ninth graders, right? How many ninth graders do we have in the room? Raise your hands, wave them at me. Lovely. Welcome, freshmen. You guys are great. How's your first year of high school going? Wonderful, normal, like homecoming, football games, basketball games, tennis, everything's normal. I feel like it's been a little weird, yeah. Okay, so here's what I wanna do. Something that I usually do when I show up here is something called 2 claps and a Ric Flair, okay? So here's what I need. Let me get 1 clap. That's good. But let's do it in unison. Let me get 1 clap. We're getting better. Let me get 2 claps. Let me get 2 claps. All right, this is where it gets spicy. Okay, this is where it gets spicy. All right, let me get a Ric Flair. Now let me show you what that sounds like. It's woo, now woo, okay? Woo is down, woo is up, okay? Let me get a Ric Flair. Oh, okay. We got some choir kids in the room, okay? Okay. Now, listen, okay? I know that when we put things together, it gets challenging, but you guys can do TikTok dances and I get a headache watching them, okay? Like it's just a special skill you guys have, so we're gonna bring it all together. Let me get 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Let me get 2 claps and a Ric Flair. If you are excited to be here tonight, let me get 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Y'all sound so good. Like, this is awesome. All right, so a couple things you need to know about me before I get started is, number one, I am from the Congo. It is right in Central Africa. I like to call it the heart of Africa. I was born there, moved to the United States when I was about 10 years old. Okay, so I'm 29 now, so I moved here 19 years ago. I moved to the great city of Johns Creek, okay, and I spent my entire high school career losing to Forsyth schools in lacrosse, basketball, football. My senior year, we went defeated, okay? We lost every single game except for homecoming, where we went up against South Forsyth and we won, okay? So come on, somebody, okay? So this place is home. I don't know if you guys are good now, but back in my day, it was not good, okay? So, this is week 4 of our conversation on habits, and one of the things that I like to do is I like to work out. I like to go to the gym, and so I recently joined a gym that offers kickboxing classes, boxing classes, Muay Thai, and all this other stuff. And so last Sunday, I'm at the gym for a boxing class, and the instructor says, "Hey, partner up. Find somebody, partner up." And if you guys have been in class when the teacher lets you do a partner project, you see the fear. You're like, oh my God, I hope I find the right person. And then you see everybody pair up, and it's just me by myself, like standing in the middle of class with my boxing gloves on, right? And this dude walks up to me, he's like, "Hey, do you want to be my partner?" And I'm like, no. Why are you so big? But I had no choice, so he was my partner. And so the instructor's like, okay, real simple, guys. What I want you to do is I want to jab, cross, right? So me and the guy's name was Matt, right? So Matt, I punch him, jab, cross, and Matt blocks, right? And then he punches me, jab, cross, and I block. And Matt's like, hey, listen, what you need to do is you need to keep your gloves up here, right? So that when I swing, you don't end up punching yourself, right? From the power of my punch. And I was like, Matt, easy instructions. You give me instructions, I'll follow instructions. So let's do this, right? So he's like, we're gonna start slow. So he starts punching, and I'm like, okay, I'm blocking. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like a little boxer. I'm like a Logan Paul person. Okay, here we go, boom, 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 right? I'm killing it right now, I'm killing it. So the instructor's like, okay, jab, jab, cross, hook. Okay, jab, jab, cross, hook. Okay, I'm like, yo, I should really, really sign up for a fight because I'm on a whole different level, right? And so something happens about 4 minutes into this exercise. Matt gets comfortable. And Matt starts getting a little more aggressive, right? Well, it went from being like slow motion punches, and I'm like, yeah, block, 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 right? Goes to Matt like full on swinging. And then I completely forget his earlier instructions about keeping my arms here because he starts going faster and faster. And so at one point, I'm just like, right? So on our final combination, Matt goes, one hook. I'm like, two hook, But I forgot that there was a third hook. So he hits me, I punch myself in the face, and I'm like, oh my God. Like I should have listened to instructions. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, this is really good. Thanks, man. Thanks for sparring with me. And here's the thing about instructions, right? They're easy to follow until something happens. They're easy to follow until something happens, right? And so for instance, you get an assignment from a teacher, it's due in 4 weeks. She says, hey, do not wait till the last minute to start this assignment, okay? It's due in 4 weeks, it's a research paper, you can knock it out, right? And so you being a ninth grader, you're like, yo, I've been in school for a minute. I don't need you to tell me when to start assignments, okay? I can handle this. So the week before the assignment is due, okay, realistically the night before at 8 p.m., while you have the TV on in the background, you open up the little syllabus and you're like, wait a second, I have to build a house from scratch. I gotta write a paper with 95 sources. I have to have somebody else read a draft. And you're like, I should have not procrastinated. Or you start catching feelings for someone. And the homies are like, they belong to the streets. And you're like, nah, like, he's different around me. But what about Susan? Susan wasn't right for him. I'm not Susan. And the homies are like, all right, cool. I'm letting you know he belongs to the streets. And you're like, no, he belongs to me. One day you guys are just hanging out, chilling and relaxing, all cool, shooting some hoops outside of school, and a couple of guys, they're up to no good, started making trouble in your neighborhood. So you're hanging out, and all of a sudden, a friend texts you a screenshot. And she's like, I told you, he belongs to the streets, right? And here's what happens. All of us, throughout our lives, we have different people give us different instructions. Do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. For some of us, the instructions are like, hey, be careful what you spend your time watching. Not everything that you watch is good for you. But then one day you're like, okay, like I've come by this link on the interweb, or somebody told me about this app, and so you start looking at images. And all of a sudden, what used to be something you did once a week, twice a week, becomes something that you do every day. And you begin to move your schedule around to look at these images, and what used to be just something you did every once in a while becomes something you do all of the time. For others of you, you may have started drinking a little bit. You're like, hey, it's just one natty light, which that sounds terrible, but whatever. It's just one beer. It's just one drink. And your friends are doing it, other people are doing it, so it's like it's not a big deal. But for some reason, for you, the way that you're wired or the way that you're receiving this is that what this thing that used to be fun now feels like an addiction. Something that you used to just do on the weekends seems like something you're doing on a regular basis. Maybe it's smoking pot. When I was growing up, that was something that a lot of my friends did on a regular basis, and some people were able to do it and be fine, but other people, it just seemed that like it led from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and then all of a sudden that this thing that started out as fun developed a habit, and then it became an addiction. And I know that addiction is not always a comfortable conversation to have, because for many of us in this room, we may be struggling with an addiction, or we know someone that is. I have lost 2 friends from high school that both OD'd because of addiction. I had a student of mine, he's a junior in college now, and I remember going out to a Thai restaurant with him, and he told me the story about his older cousin that overdosed on heroin. So addiction is something that is rampant in a lot of our lives, and I know that it's sometimes a difficult conversation to have, but we want Inside Out to be a place that we can have honest conversations, even if they're challenging. And so whether you are someone that is struggling with addiction or you know someone that is struggling with addiction, what we come to find out about it is that addiction does not play fair. There's a verse in John chapter 10 where Jesus is speaking. It's John 10:10, and it says this: "The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy." And there are things in this world, there are things in this life that are designed to destroy us, that are looking out to make the worst for us. But Jesus says this about himself: "I have come that they," meaning us, "may have life and have it to the full." Jesus says that I have come to give you life, to give you freedom, to give you hope, to give you abundance. This is who Jesus is. 3 things that we can learn about addiction is that addiction steals your hope. It makes you believe that things will not get better. After the 3rd or 4th time that you promise yourself not to fall back into that behavior and you find yourself doing it again, you're like, yo, I thought that I could handle this thing. After the 3rd or 4th time that you find somebody that you love passed out drunk, after the 3rd or 4th time you find out that somebody you love has done too much of whatever it is, you begin to lose hope that things are gonna get better. Addiction has a way of stealing your hope. Addiction has a way of killing opportunities. How many things do we miss out on? How many good things do we miss out on as a result of our own personal struggles or the result of someone else's struggles? It is this thing that can become all-consuming, and the good things that may have been in store for you or for them begin to be snatched away. The 3rd thing that we can learn about addiction is that addiction has the ability to destroy your life. Addiction can destroy your life. It's a strange thing to me that when I was a kid, I didn't have to look too far back into history to find a famous artist, musician, actor, someone in a position of power that had succumbed to this disease. And sometimes it feels like it's overwhelming. Like, what do we do when this is the challenge that we face? There was an interesting study that was done on soldiers that fought in the Vietnam War. What was happening during that time was that 20% of American soldiers were using large amounts of heroin on a regular basis. So the army, the government, the nation was concerned that we sent hundreds and thousands of young men to war. Some of them lost a limb, others of them lost their lives. Many of them saw things that are too tragic to talk about. And then as they're coming home, the fear was that this 20%, that we'd end up with thousands of veterans that were drug addicts. And so what the government began to do and what psychologists began to do was they began to watch these soldiers, began to monitor them, because this could be a compounded tragedy. And something peculiar happened. 95% of them stopped using. They didn't go to rehab. They didn't go to jail. They came home and they stopped using. Now, this is strange, right? Because you would think that if you're using a large amount of heroin on a regular basis, you're not just gonna come home and be like, that was weird, huh? Anyway, let's go play some basketball. But that's what seemed to happen to these soldiers. It caused psychologists to come up with a hypothesis that maybe addictive behavior has less to do with chemical bonds and more to do with the idea of adapting to a hard environment, or the need to deal with trauma, or the pain of isolation. Now I know what most of you guys are thinking, right? So we live in Forsyth County. There may be a lot of Jeeps, but there's no war going on here. Maybe a couple of intense high school rivalries, but I'm not waking up in the morning, digging a trench and preparing for warfare, right? Like, what is it that we have to begin to deal with? Growing up around here, I know that a lot of times things look shiny on the outside that are not great on the inside. There are people in this room whose parents, their marriage is pretend. They pretend to be nice to each other outside of your home, but at night you can hear them arguing. You can hear their voices through the walls. There are people in this room who something happened to you when you were young that you've never told anybody, and the pain and the shame of that moment you've dealt with on your own. There are guys and girls in this room that feel like their whole world is kind of chaotic, so the thing you choose to control is your eating. You limit your calories. When you eat too much, you throw up on purpose. And there are things that you're dealing with that no one else knows about. One of the hypotheses that came out of this experiment was that maybe we need to rename addiction to bonding. As human beings, we're designed to bond to things that give us life. So whether it's healthy friendships, whether it's purposeful living, whether it's a relationship with God, we're designed to bond. And when we can't bond in a healthy way, we will find something to bond to, even if it's images on our screens, even if it's controlling the way our bodies look. And so the idea is that what if the opposite of this bonding to this temporary thing was replaced with bonding with healthy community? What if we had healthier friendships? What if we had more honest friendships? What if we had more honest conversations with our parents, our siblings, our coaches? What if the opposite of addiction is not sobriety? But what if the opposite of addiction is community? It's finding people that you can connect with deeply so that those wounds and those things that have happened to you can begin to be dealt with in a healthy way. I know that in a room this large, there's probably more than a handful of people who are struggling with something that at one moment in time started off as something I do for fun. Then it became a part of your routine. And all of a sudden, this thing now controls every aspect of your life. It controls your decision making. For other people in this room, it's not even your addiction that's affecting you. It's a member of your family. It's a sibling. It's a parent. It's a cousin. And everything in the family is moving to try to help this person or be angry with this person, and it's just becoming a lot. The beauty of places like this is that if you choose to, right? If you choose to, this is something that no adult in this room has control over. We do not set the tone of the culture in Inside Out. Every single student in this room does. You decide how open we can be. You decide how real we can be. You decide how safe this place can be. We can set the environment. We can give you the food. We can give you the rooms, but you set the tone. You determine what kind of place this can be. So what if this place became a safe place for us to come with our issues, for us to come with our fears, for us to come with our addictions, and to deal with them? How would your life look? How would your life be different if you were able to have freedom from that habit that you've become addicted to? Inside Out, I'm gonna, got it. I'm gonna be real with you. I look back on the two girls that I went to high school with that OD'd. And you know what bothers me when I look back is that both of them were freshmen when I was a junior. And the mistake that I made was I saw things begin to escalate, and I played it off because I assumed that I had more time. They're gonna figure it out. Everybody goes through that phase. Oh, she's high again in first period, it'll be fine. Oh, smoked at lunch, it'll be fine. Oh, experimenting with that, it'll be fine. It's just a phase, it's 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 a phase, phase. Hey, Rice, did you hear about? It's a phase, it's a phase, it's a phase, it's a phase, it's a phase. Hey, Rice, did you hear about? If you or someone you know is starting to notice that what started off as a habit, what started off as fun, is now starting to control you, please talk to someone. And it may not be drugs, and it may not be drinking, and it may not be pornography, it may not be an eating disorder. It could just be that when you get overwhelmed, you just shut down and you watch YouTube the entire day. You sit in your room, you don't talk to your friends, you don't talk to your parents, you just isolate. And that's okay to do for a day or two, but what happens when a day or two becomes a week, a month, 3 months? You matter too much to us to allow anything to control you. So please, 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 if you are feeling something begin to take more and more control of you, talk to someone, preferably an adult. And here's the thing, this is the last thing I'm gonna say. When I was a junior in high school, my friends and I were studying for an AP psychology quiz. And for a while, I didn't study for quiz or tests because I was really good at taking them. And so I was like, I don't need to study. And the one time I didn't study for a psychology quiz, I got an 8%, 8% out of 100. And AP psychology was like, you're gonna learn today, okay? You're gonna study. So There was all of this stuff going on in my family, and I was just like in this very dark place. At the end of our study session, I told my friend Mona, and I told my friend Allison, and I was like, hey guys, I love you, I care about you, thank you for being amazing friends. And immediately they knew something was wrong. They were like, that's weird, that's not how you end conversations. The next day I go into psychology class and I'm sitting in the back of the room and somebody comes in and brings me a note to go to the counseling office. And I knew what they did because they knew that I'd given up. And so they ratted me out. They didn't rat me out, they saved my life. And so if at any moment you see a friend doing things that may cost them their lives, love them enough to rat them out. Because the difference between my parents celebrating the anniversary of my death and them celebrating me getting a promotion last month was one conversation that two of my best friends had. I'm gonna leave you with this question again before you leave. How would your life be different if you were able to have freedom from that habit that has become an addiction? Let's pray. Dad, thank you so much for this amazing group of students and this amazing group of small group leaders. Dad, I pray that if anybody in this room is struggling and is isolated and is feeling out of control, that you would help them go to someone about it. Help them go to someone about it. Dad, I pray for the small group leaders in this room who are struggling with things that they haven't even told anybody about, that have families and homes to go back to, that they have their own challenges, but instead of wallowing, they've come here to serve young people and to help them find you. God, I pray that you would continue to surround those small group leaders with community. And Dad, I pray for this place, for Inside Out, that it would be a place of real, honest community, honest conversations. And if anybody is feeling like they want to give up, remind them that their value is so much that you stepped out of heaven to die for them here on earth. And so God, we love you and we trust you. We thank you for who you are. It's in Jesus' name I pray, amen.